Hello my bookish besties and welcome back in. Today we are going to be discussing the 12 books I read in January. Let's go ahead and discuss some reading stats. So like I mentioned, I read 12 books in January. That equals about 4,686 pages because I took out some of the pages of two of the books I read. I read like half of them last year and weird stuff happened, so I didn't count all of the pages of those books. My average star rating was a 4.25, which is crazy. That's a crazy high average, especially considering recently I've been in the 3s. My genre breakdown, I read 5 fantasy, I read 2 romance, I read 2 YA books, I read 2 just general fiction, I read 1 like mystery thriller. My favorite book of the month was Silver Elite. We'll get into it. And then my least favorite book of the month was Any Trope But You. Okay, let's really quickly discuss my January TBR. I did technically read 6 out of 6 books. I did DNF one of those though. I DNF'd Red City by Marie Lu. I just wasn't vibing with it. I can go into further details a little bit later if anyone is like super curious as the exact reason as to why I DNF'd it. That is, I guess, a slight spoiler for the reviews that are to come, but that being said, I did read 6 out of 6 from my January TBR, and I'm feeling really, really happy and proud of that. So hopefully we do the same thing here in February. But let's go ahead and get into the reviews now. The first book I finished in January is I finally finished The Raven Scholar. I started reading this back in August, took a pretty long break, and then just recently finished it. I believe I rated it a 4-star when it was all said and done because obviously it took me a really long time to finish, and I did find that I had to reread sections of it quite often. Like, definitely was not bad. It's just there were points that, like, because it took me so long to read, I forgot. And I do fear that before I continue on with book 2, I am going to have a reminder of what happened in book 1. But like I said, I do fear that is a me problem. I think it was literally just right book, wrong time kind of thing. Basically, this is about a girl. She's like an assistant to the king, and they are about to start these trials. Sorry, he's an emperor. They're about to start trials to replace him and pick the next one. And there are these different like houses, essentially, kind of like in Harry Potter, where there's the Raven house, obviously the ravens, the foxes, the bears, the dragons, and a couple of others, like I think maybe like a monkey. I don't know. Anywho, there's a bunch of different houses, and they each send one competitor to like compete for this role as emperor, and she is just kind of there like helping, and then all of a sudden someone gets murdered, and not only does she have to help solve this murder, she is now up in the running for the next emperor. So we basically follow her as we not only try to solve the mysteries, but we also do some trials, and it's really good. I really liked it. Like I said, I think it's a right book, right time. It just took me internally. It's called The Eternal Path. It took me just entirely way too long to read, so I can't rate it higher than 4, but I would recommend it. After that, I did a reread of People We Meet on Vacation. This is and probably always will be a 5-star read for me. I love this book. If you somehow have not ever heard of it, basically we follow Alex and Poppy, as they go on, I think it's like 8 summers of vacations together, and each summer kind of something happens, and then on their last summer, some drama happens to where they stop being friends, and we follow both their past to figure out kind of, what happened, where did they come from, etc., to now the present. They get together on a trip to try to rekindle their friendship, and we follow them on both their past and present vacations. And it's so good. Please read it. Please read it. I genuinely think the reason they did this as the first Emily Henry movie was because I think it is her least popular book, which is criminal because in my opinion it is one of her best books. Alex, I love him. I also love Poppy. I love her. I genuinely feel like I am a mix of Alex. Nope. No. I'm a mix of Poppy, Nora, and Gwen from Happy Place. Anywho, reread People We Meet on Vacation. The third book I read in January was Before I Forget. I went ahead and rated this 4 stars. It is pretty good. It's basically about a girl whose dad has dementia, but it turns out that not only does he have dementia, he can also kind of see the future now. So he's having these premonitions, and she is trying to, you know, deal with what does life look like when my dad is like forgetting his old self, his old life, but is starting to kind of develop this new life in a way, like he, you know, he's becoming magic, basically. So it was pretty good. I do have critiques of it. I think I deep dive into it in another one of my videos. I'll link it up in the cards if I can figure out which one it is. But yeah, it was really good, and I liked it quite a bit. We did this as our book club book for January, or I guess December. Like, we met in January over it, and I'm really glad I read it. I would recommend it. It was really good. Like I said, I do have some complaints about it. Like, I wish it wouldn't have romanticized dementia as much as it did, but overall I would recommend this book, and I thought it was really good. Next, I picked up Us Against You. This is by Frederick Bachman. This is the second book in the Beartown trilogy. Personally, I think I liked this one more than the first book because, like, we kind of already knew our characters and we follow them as another tragedy happens in this town, but majority of the book is us following them, you know, dealing with the repercussions of what happened in the first book, and I just really liked it. I thought it was very human. It was very sad. I personally found it more emotional than the first book, which I do feel like is unpopular, but yeah, I quite enjoyed this. I can't say much about it because, like I said, it is the second book in a trilogy. The first book is about a hockey town in Sweden where a tragedy happens, and you have to kind of, you know, deal with, do we listen to the public and what they want, or do we keep up the appearances of this sport that's basically paying for a whole town? So you kind of deal with the drama and tribulations of childhood and adulthood and just life. It's at its core, it's a trilogy about life, and I really like it. I definitely recommend. I didn't love Beartown, but I did quite enjoy this, and I'm excited to read the winners hopefully soon. The next book I finished in January was The Poet Empress. I was lucky enough to receive an advanced listener's copy of this. That being said, by the time this video goes up, this already will be published, so you can go and pick up a copy of it for yourself if you would like. Basically, The Poet Empress is about a lady. Her name is Wei. She wants to save her family and her village, so she applies for this program where she can go become one of the wives, I guess, for the emperor, and she goes to like this training, like essentially how Mulan goes to that training in the beginning of the movie to like learn how to be a perfect wife. Wei goes through something similar to that, where she's learning how to, you know, be a proper woman and show up for her man, etc. But then some crazy stuff happens. There's a war, and we learn about the dark past of the emperor and some of the crazy stuff going on in the community and the kingdom. So we follow her as she tries to, you know, not die. I don't know what else to say. This book is incredibly dark though, so definitely check trigger warnings. I'm not someone who like is easily turned off, I guess, by dark subject matters, but this one was like pretty intense, especially for an advanced listener's copy. I would recommend, if you are going to read this book, to do either an immersion read or just physically eyeball read it, because I did at times find the audiobook to be slightly confusing, and I do think that's part of why my score is what it was, because I was having a hard time following the story at times. I don't think that was a fault to the narrator, but I just personally think I would have enjoyed this book potentially more if I'd read, like physically read some of it. The next book I read was Silver Elite. I had such a good time reading this. It was a 5-star read for me. I understand the hate though, like I completely understand why it's not everyone's cup of tea. I think for me it was a case of right book, right time. I read this during a 24-hour readathon, so I think just having it to be bingeable and fun was the right call for me. Basically, we follow this girl. I already forgot her name. Rin. Her name is literally on the back. We follow Rin, who is she's like a magic wielder, but in this town, or I guess this world, wielding magic is illegal, so she's a magic wielder, and at some point, something happens to her to where she has to join the like magic police, basically this force, this army that hunts down magic wielders. So she is essentially undercover, trying really hard not to get caught as a magic wielder, while also trying really hard not to catch her fellow magic wielders, because, you know, obviously they all band together, they're all friends. And then naturally, because it's a romantasy of types, there is a dark and brooding man that comes along in her path and all this stuff. But yeah, I had a really, really good time reading this. I thought it was super fun. It was giving like if Fourth Wing was a spy school, and I have no complaints. I thought it was really, really fun, and I'm really, really excited to read the next book when it comes out, hopefully later this year. And I personally would recommend it. So after that, I picked up Sorcery of Thorns. This is by Margaret Rogerson. Basically, this book is about a girl. She is a librarian, and she works at this magical library, and then one night something happens to where she has to kind of, like, they think that she committed a crime she didn't commit. So she goes kind of on the run a little bit, and we follow her as she, you know, figures out what actually happened the night that stuff went wrong, who did it, is she going to be in trouble, is magic actually bad, etc. We follow her on her journey, and we meet a giant cast of characters along the way. I will say this had one of the most unique magic systems I think I've ever read about. It has kind of like demon magic, which I thought was super, super cool, and I definitely would recommend this book. I rated this book a 4 stars. I thought it was really, really well done. It had parts of the story that felt very reminiscent of other stories I've read, but overall it was still really unique and fun. I just think if I had read this earlier on in my reading journey, I probably would have enjoyed it a little bit more than I did. Next, I read Dance of Lies. This is by Brittany Arena. This book is about a dancer who works for a king. She just got out of jail. She's been in captivity for the past couple of years, so she's all frail and weak, but the king offers her an opportunity to basically clear her name if she will go undercover at this giant fair festival that happens for all three of this kingdom is divided up into 3 parts. There's 3 kings. And the king she lives under sends her to work undercover at the festival in front of the other 2 kings, doing his bidding. And so basically in this book we follow her as she not only does these amazing performances that they have such intricate detailing of, it felt like I was actually watching her dance, but we also follow her as she does kind of these crazy undercover spy missions and stuff goes wrong. There's romance, there's drama. It was really good, and I'm really, really happy I read it. I'm super excited to read book 2 when it comes out, I think in September, and I would definitely recommend it. Also, this cover is just literally gorgeous, so be sure to check it out. Next, I finished City of Bones. This is the first book in the Mortal Instruments series by Cassandra Clare. I really, really liked it. I rated it, I think, either 4 or 5 stars. It was really high. I thought it was really fun. I was really impressed with it. It gave that 2010 CW cringe that I personally have been craving recently, and I really liked our characters. Obviously, I love Jace. Thank God Jeffrey Campbell Bower played him. I think having that image in my head was just absolutely perfection, and I didn't necessarily love Clary, but she's 15, so, whatever. She's literally a child. But anywho, if you don't know, the Mortal Instruments is basically about a girl who stumbles upon the fact that she is what's called a shadow hunter. Those are the people that can see the creatures of the night and fight against them. So she discovers she is a shadow hunter, and she stumbles upon some crazy stuff, and we follow her and Jace and some of the other shadow hunters as they, they try to solve some mysteries. Her mom gets kidnapped very early on in the book, so the main focus of this book is them trying to figure out what happened to Clary's mom and why was her mom involved, and also what does that mean for Clary's life in the future. So I had a lot of fun reading this. I'm planning, I think, to do a Mortal Instruments series reading vlog. If you'd like to see that, let me know down in the comments below, because I'm a little iffy on if I want to post it or if I want to just do the Infernal Devices, but be sure to let me know, and I would definitely recommend it. Next, I finally finished Not Quite Dead Yet. This is my new all-time favorite Holly Jackson book. I rated this 5 stars. It was phenomenal. This is another one of those books that I started really early last year, like I think on Halloween, and I just finished it here in January. That being said, this was an easy 5 stars for me because there was never a moment where I put this book down and I stopped thinking about it. I had fun and enjoyed it the whole entire time I was reading it, and I would highly recommend. Basically, our main character Jet, she gets bonked in the head one night, and she gets told by doctors that she has 1 week to either live or solve her own murder, or she can do this really risky surgery that might kill her anyway. So she opts to do the week to solve her own murder, and we follow her during this week as she's trying to figure out who done it. And it was so well written. It was incredibly thought-provoking, and I would highly recommend it. Next, I read Any Trope But You. This is basically about a writer who doesn't believe in love, so her sister ships her off to Alaska to try to figure out her life, get her, rein herself back in. She's basically on a writing retreat, and naturally there is a strong, crazy lumberjack man there, and we follow her as she tries to heal and self-discover a little bit, and we follow him as he's trying to navigate some tragedies in his own life. And yeah, it was really good. It was really spicy and sweet. I rated it 3 stars. I don't know that I'd recommend it, but I'm also not a huge romance reader, so take that with a grain of salt, but I liked it. I don't think I'll ever think about it again though, if I'm being honest, but yeah, I read it, and I'm not mad I read it, so. And then last but not least, in January, I read To Cage a Wild Bird. This book, I believe, isn't published yet. I listened to an advanced listener's copy. On Goodreads, it said it is not out yet, but my advanced listener's copy said it released back in October. So it might be one of those things where in some countries it's out, some countries it's not. But anywho, this is basically a dystopian book that is a mixture of the Hunger Games and the beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy and a couple of stories like that, where our main character, she basically gets herself arrested so that she can go inside this unescapable prison, think like Azkaban, to try to rescue and save her brother. And we follow her and her, band of misfits as they go on this journey. And I thought this book was really well done. I rated it a 4 stars. There were definitely moments that I thought were a little too convenient, but overall I really enjoyed the plot, and I would definitely recommend checking it out once it officially publishes, if it's not published already, because like I said, I'm really not clear on that. But anywho, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Let me know down in the comments below what was your favorite read from January, and let me know what's on your February TBR, and I will see you guys in the next one.